It is brutal. It is bone-chilling. We warned this to be dangerously cold, and it's been unrelenting.
Yeah, Governor Hochul there. Later we'll play a clip of Governor Sherrill kind of gloating that it will be a traditional day off from school in much of New Jersey, unlike in New York City today. I know schools are closed in a lot of the region other than the city. We'll talk about that later in the show. But are you one of those people who went out to play in the snow yesterday? Like the person I saw in New York, one who I think was skiing down 9th Avenue in Manhattan, and another one skiing across Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, or of course out with your kids. Or are you more the type who was perfectly content to stay indoors and watch the winter wonderland out your window and just stay as warm as you could and kind of chuckle at other people who were going out in it or had to go out in it? Because have you been working? We always try to remember on the show all of you who have to work on days like holidays and during snow and ice storms so everyone else can take a gap. Or maybe you're a New York City teacher or a school kid yourself getting ready for a remote learning day, or someone from most other school districts in our area which are closed. We'll talk to New York One Chief Meteorologist John Davitt to start the show today to explain where our region is at, how it got this way, and what happens next with the extreme cold. And then we'll have Comptroller and former Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine on. He'll talk about providing city services to vulnerable people, the really serious part of the storm, as well as general snow and ice cleanup, and also what we originally booked Mark Levine for. He's got some very bracing news for Mayor Mamdani and the City Council about a budget gap that they will have to deal with immediately, and the choices regarding city services for all New Yorkers that they may have to face. And later, we will definitely also discuss what's happening in Minnesota with ICE and with the Trump officials lying about the killing of Alex Preddy until they got caught by the video evidence. Even the Wall Street Journal editorial page, which I'll read from later, is saying the Trump administration spin on this just isn't believable, and they're calling for ICE to pause its operations there. That'll be later. But John Davitt, Chief Meteorologist for Spectrum News NY1, is with us to explain the conditions outside right now and to help take your calls with your experiences, fun or otherwise, since the snow started falling early Sunday morning. John, I know you're a busy guy today in your real job, so thanks for making some time for us, and welcome to WNYC.
Hey, thanks, Brian. Yeah, no, it's great to be here. And, winter has not been really visiting New York the last few years. And as a meteorologist and snow lover, I've missed it. So yesterday was really cool to see. And now today, I think the reality is setting in that it looks pretty until you got to go out in it. But yeah, yesterday was something else. It's been a long time since we've seen something like that.
Yeah, and we will talk about the long-range context of this as we go. But listeners will also get to city services more with Comptroller Levine in a bit. But this first stretch will be on the weather itself and what you've been doing in it. So who has a question for John Davitt? You can call it Ask a Meteorologist, 212-433.
I love it.
WNYC. Ask a Meteorologist anything about meteorology, 212-433-9692. You can call or you can text, or help us report the snow and ice story. You can do that too. We can't have a reporter everywhere in the area. So call from anywhere in our region and describe conditions where you are. How much snow? How much ice on top of the snow? How are the roads? How are the trees? Or anything you want to report. Help us report the story of this storm. 212-433-WNYC. Call or text 212-433-9692. I'm curious to hear from you if you're anywhere in the city, of course, but also if you're along the Jersey Shore or inland in Jersey too, or it'd be different than the shore. Curious to hear from you if you're on Long Island, where things can be different from the city, or up north. Anyone in Newburgh or around there want to tell us what you got on your block or what people need? 212-433-WNYC. Tell us what you've been doing in the snow. Report the conditions on your block or in your area from anywhere in our region, or ask John Davitt a question. 212-433 WNYC, 212-433-9692. Call or text. John, how much snow is there, first of all, in various parts of the city that you're watching?
Yeah, so it really does vary quite a bit. So if you're in an area where you've got more trees than cars, you probably have about 15 to 8 inches, 18 inches. So, we're talking Rockland County, we're talking inland parts of Connecticut, we're talking Northwest Jersey, all those places, they really got the most, 15 to 18 inches of snow, and it all came down really fast in an Arctic air mass. So it really collected. I mean, this was the second weekend in a row where we had a storm, but this one was different because it was so cold. Last weekend it snowed for hours and nothing stuck in most places, maybe a few inches, but this time it was a different ball game for sure. In New York City, that's really my backyard, and that's what I focus on. It was the most snow we've seen in 4 years, and I feel a little bit cheated, Brian. We ended up with 11.4 inches in Central Park. If we had another zero point 0.6, just a little over a half inch, it would have been the most snow in 5 years instead of 4 years. So, yeah, the weather geeks were rooting for a foot of snow. So we're looking for that extra half inch. But this is the most. Yesterday's snowfall for New York City was almost more snow than we saw last year, and it's been an active winter so far in New York City. We've had over 20 inches of snow, and if you add that up, it's almost more snow this winter so far, which is only about half over, than the last 3 winters combined. So there's a lot of cleanup out there for sure, and it's an interesting type of snow. It's kind of when you dig it, you can kind of get like the archaeology of the storm, because when you do that first shovel on the top, it's that hard crust, because most of us ended up with freezing rain and sleet. So the first shovel is heavy and really crusty, and then after that you get into the powder, and that was the bulk of the storm. So as a meteorologist, I felt like an archaeologist as I was doing some shoveling this morning.
I saw you on TV around 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, John, saying the snow is about over, but we were in for many hours of ice. Are you measuring that in inches too, in addition to the 11.4 of snow?
No, the 11.4 is the snow and the ice combined. So yeah, all those numbers come from the National Weather Service, and when most people think about measuring snow, they go out to their porch, and they go out to the table on their back porch or their sidewalk, and they stick a ruler in the snow, and they go, okay, that's the snowfall. But actually, the professional way that the National Weather Service measures snow is they have what's called a snow board. So this is usually a piece of wood, and they put it out and they leave it out in the same location for an hour. And then after an hour, they go and measure it. Then they wipe it off, put it back. Next hour, they go again, and they go measure it hour by hour. So it's definitely different and a little bit more precise than what most people think when it comes to snowfall. So yeah, in terms of pure snow, we saw about 8 inches of snow, and then it turned over, and that was a real surprise. I mean, we knew it was going to turn over, but I mean, I've been forecasting now in New York City for over 30 years, and every storm is a little different, but this one stood out in a few ways. And the biggest way it stood out to me was just how cold it was. That Arctic air moved in Friday, and in Central Park, we had over 40 consecutive hours where temperatures were below 20 degrees. That is really cold for our area. And during the storm, temperatures were sitting around 12 degrees. That's really unusual for us. Normally, if we've got a winter storm, it's 25 degrees, it's 28 degrees. So to see 12 is really unbelievable. And then, I think the biggest question I got from my coworkers and, people on social media were, hey, it's 12 degrees, it's 13 degrees, and it's either freezing rain or little ice pellets, sleet at my house. How is this possible? My 8th grade science teacher said 32 degrees is the freezing line. So, I mean, you think about it for a minute. I think we can mostly understand that, the snow or rain isn't forming at the ground level. It's forming a little higher in the atmosphere. So, why it snowed and rained at 13 degrees was that a little higher in the atmosphere, we had temperatures that were above that freezing line. So, really, what we had was rain forming at about 15,000, 20,000 feet in the atmosphere. And then that raindrop fell into that really cold Arctic layer and became a frozen raindrop. And yeah, that's what hit you in the face or bounced out the window. So yeah, for this, and it was those are, so the temperature and getting ice at 13 degrees, that's going to be some memories for me from this storm. And then the other one is just how long it lasted. I mean, we started in Staten Island with some precipitation, snow at about 5 a.m. yesterday. And at 8 o'clock at night, there was still a little bit of precipitation. So we're talking about an event that lasted over 12 hours. And, people always like to complain about, plowing, and it's a hard job. That's a long time to fight a storm. And the other part of the cleanup this time around, it looks different in everybody's neighborhood, but this was incredibly challenging for anybody who had to be on the snow removal and road treatment side of this equation because of the temperature. We don't have the type of gear and the type of chemicals, the salt and the brining. That's all great, but really most of our snowstorms and ice events in this part of the country happen 20 degrees or higher. Once you go below 20 degrees, a lot of those chemicals, rock salt and the brining solutions, they're about half as effective. And that really hampers the snow fighting ability. So, it may not look great in your neighborhood, but there's a reason. It's not because they didn't try. It's because of the temperature. I mean, it really, that's a tough battle to fight a snowstorm in 12 degrees.
On the sleet, listener texts, I walked through Tompkins Square Park, which looks beautiful, frozen in time, quiet and empty, but the snow started to hurt around 3 p.m., It felt like thousands of needles hitting the skin on my face. What kind of painful snow is that? So I think that is the sleet that you're describing. But also if I got the numbers that you gave us accurately, you're talking about more than 3 inches of ice, of sleet, having fallen on top of 8 inches of snow. Did I calculate that correctly?
Yeah, no, your math is right. And the person who commented, they're 100% right. That hurts. Yeah. And we had really strong winds yesterday too. So you've got this frozen raindrop that's falling, from the upper atmosphere and then being driven by the wind. Yeah, no, that hurts. I can remember having a sleet storm at one point in my earlier part of my career, and they put me outside. They're like, "Hey, why don't you go outside and, cover this?" And it was sleet, and to protect the camera, they had to turn the camera away from the way the sleet was coming, which meant my face was going into the camera. So yeah, sitting there and trying to talk about the weather while getting pelted with those ice balls. It's interesting. Somebody on social media called it baby hail, which I thought was kind of funny. Hail, obviously, is also an ice product, but that's usually happens in the summertime with thunderstorms. It's formed by a different process than sleet. But yeah, baby hail. That was a new one for me.
I'll have some baby hail with my baby kale. Some reports from around the scene. Listener writes, from around the area, I should say. Cold Spring, New York. We got just under 2 feet of dry, soft powder. No ice or sleet crust, so no power outages so far. Another one, this is from a dog owner on the Upper West Side who writes, we have about 1 corgi's height worth of snow. Central Park is magical right now. Roads are clear, but sidewalks are piled high. It was a hilly trek for our dog. And let's go next to Paul.
That could be a new way.
Yes.
That could be a new way to rate storms. I mean, they have Category 1, Category 2, 3, 4, and 5 for hurricanes. Maybe for snowstorms we could rate them on the Corgi scale.
How many corgis on the corgi scale? And let's get a report from Paul out in Branchville in Sussex County, Northwest New Jersey. If you don't know, Paul, you're on WNYC. Hey.
Hi, long-time listener, first-time caller. Yeah, we have 18 to 24 inches here, and what normally takes about an hour to plow, I'm still doing, and I started at 7 o'clock this morning. Just plowing out my own business in my own house. Lots of snow, nice fresh powder.
Paul,
and the lakes up there, the lakes up there are frozen too, right? Do you ever ice fish up in that area?
Yeah, I used to ice fish, not anymore.
Exactly. Last winter, I bet you did.
Yes. I live in Culver Lake, which is the second largest natural lake in New Jersey, and it's been frozen for over a month.
Yeah, no, that's incredible. I'm going to try and get out, I think, next month. I tried last year on a lake in New Jersey. I didn't catch anything, but it was really cool. Do you have the hand-powered auger or the powered auger?
I have a hand-powered auger.
Oh, wow. Good. Going old school. Yeah. Good for you. Yeah. No, me too. I think that's the most fun part. I don't know if you've ever done it, Brian, but yeah, you walk out onto this frozen lake.
I don't even know what an auger is. What is an auger? Tell this kid from Queens.
It's like a corkscrew. If you're going to open a bottle of wine, it's got a curvy blade, and then you put it against the ice, and then it's probably about 4 feet tall, and then you go spin it, and it's got a blade, and you cut a hole through the ice. And while you're out there, the ice is making all these really kind of cool noises, and it's a unique experience. I've done it a few times, but I never catch anything. Maybe this year.
Paul, thanks for calling in. And with New York One Chief Meteorologist John Davitt, Heather in Rockaway. You're on WNYC. Hi, Heather.
Hi. I didn't know I would be on, actually. I just was asking a general question that yesterday it seemed like the snow that was coming down was similar to the manufactured fake snow that they make at ski resorts. So I was just wondering why, just technically.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
This is the frustration for a lot of kids too, right? It didn't pack for snowballs and snowmen and stuff, right?
Yeah, but it's a great observation. I didn't even think about it. I mean, I'm a skier and a snowboarder, so I'm familiar with the snowmaking guns and how that product is. So why it was so similar to manufactured snow, I guess we'll use that word, is when they use those snow guns on the ski resorts, they go and set the humidity levels so that they maximize the amount of water they're using, because most of those places have limits on their water. So they want to make it as light and fluffy as possible so they can get the most snow for their water usage. So yeah, those guns are adjustable in terms of the humidity setting. So with the Arctic air in place, that makes for a high snow ratio. At the first half of the storm, normally if you get an inch of snow, you get an inch of water, you get 10 inches of snow. So it's a 10-to-1 ratio. With this event, at the start at least, because of the extreme cold, we were seeing ratios of 15 inches to 1 inch of water, or even up to 20 inches to 1 inch of water, especially in some of the northern areas where the cold was more impressive. So yeah, no, it's pretty special to see that kind of powdery snow. That's not normal for our part of the country for sure. But that's a great observation. I'm really impressed that person noted that. That's really great.
Heather, thank you for that. Call us again with more prescient observations or accurate observations on it not packing. Some wise guy notes here that maybe that's why Mayor Mamdani invited school kids to throw snowballs at him for having a remote learning day rather than just a canceled school day today. But here's a note from someone in the Catskills who writes that mostly it was light and didn't stick on trees. I think they mean the weight of the snow was light and didn't stick on trees. I checked New York Gas and Electric, and there were 0 power outages in my county in the Catskills last night, which was positive and rare. So that's interesting. I mean, we were all anticipating the possibility of a lot of tree branches down, a lot of power lines down, power outages, but I haven't been seeing that in the news, at least not for this region.
Yeah, I think there's two things at play here. Number one was the type of storm this was. This wasn't a nor'easter with that rapid intensification. People like to use that word bombogenesis. It just means a storm that starts off weak and then turns strong. So those are real wind makers, and that's not what this type of storm was. In the meteorology world, this storm was a Miller B setup. So what that means is that an area of low pressure forms, and then it gets to the Appalachian Mountains, and then it reforms off the coast. And generally, those are a little bit weaker when it comes to wind. And then the other aspect of this was it was sleet in terms of the ice and not freezing rain. If this had been a long-term freezing rain event, I think we would have seen those power outages. But thankfully, we didn't. There's nothing worse than power outages in the winter time.
So here's a longer range question that's on my mind, and it's on Tony in Manhattan's mind too. And I'm going to let him pose the question to you. Tony, you're on WNYC. Hello.
Hello, everybody. Love the show. Three quick things. I'm an old snow freak, and in 1961, during the 60-61 season, we used to go to the Daily News building and stand in front of the weather map the night before the storm. And it was this magnificent map, and people would stand there arguing whether it would be sleet, rain, snow. Anyway, that was one. Number two, I worked in a nursing home, a physician, and there was a 100-year-old man who told me about shoveling the snow of the blizzard of '88 in Greenwich Village, which is interesting, which was a March storm for 3 days with sub-10 temperatures in March. But the meteorological question is the polar vortex, which seems to explain all of this for the country, is being cited by some as a argument against global warming. But I'd like you to comment as to how the polar vortex fits into the global warming phenomenon.
Yeah, all great questions. Let's talk about that winter of 60-61 first. That was a really intense winter. So far this year, we've seen about 20 inches of snow. Normal snowfall for an entire winter in New York City is about 30 inches. That winter, 1960-61, we had almost 55 inches, 54.7. So yeah, that was a big year. All right. So, and then polar vortex, and then, some folks call it, global warming. The current term really is climate change. I know it kind of launched itself as global warming, but much more accurate to call it climate change because it is our climate changing, and certainly there's a lot more going on than just rising temperatures. So let's talk polar vortex. So polar vortex, big picture, it's a jet stream pattern. A closed jet stream pattern. Jet stream are winds in the upper atmosphere. They steer our storms and air masses. So the polar vortex is a core of Arctic air that forms every winter. So how it relates to the climate change situation is that our global winds, our jet streams, are actually getting slower because of climate change. Upper level winds are usually not usually, but upper level winds are related to the temperature difference between the temperature at the equator and the temperature at the poles. So the bigger temperature difference between the poles and the equator, the faster our winds are. And when we have fast winds, the polar vortex tends to stay kind of where it belongs, up in the North Pole. So what's happening now is we are seeing less of a temperature difference between the equator and the North Pole because of our warming climate. So the Arctic is warming 4 times as fast as the rest of the planet. So because the temperature difference is less between the equator and the Arctic, we're getting slower winds, and that allows our jet stream patterns to become more wavy, and that allows the polar vortex to wander further south than it normally would. And it also means we get jet stream patterns that sometimes can be stuck for weeks and weeks instead of maybe just a few days. And we are going to see that right now in the eastern half of the nation. Right now, we are not expecting to see temperatures go above the freezing mark in New York City for the next 10 days minimum. And the 10 to 14 day outlook, that goes to about February 8th, calls for below normal temperatures throughout the entire East Coast. So we're talking about 3 to 4 weeks of intense cold. So, it's kind of interesting to be able to talk about climate change and have it bring colder weather. It doesn't really kind of seem like it makes sense at first and until you put all the pieces together. Good topic.
But on the climate change aspect, a little more on that. I mean, I thought this wasn't supposed to happen like this anymore in these parts. And there are definitely people, as Tony, the caller, was suggesting, who are going to say, oh, yeah, all you people saying global warming, climate change, see? So can you do a little climatology along with your meteorology?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, at New York One, every night at 10 o'clock, we have a segment called Climate Check. So we're talking climate 5 days a week. So yeah, climate and weather go together for sure. Let's talk about it. So there's climate and then there's weather. So weather is what's happening day to day. Climate is what is happening over decades. Usually we're talking about what's been changing over the last 30 years. So one hot day, one cold day, one snowstorm, that's not climate, that's weather. But when you put all the numbers together and you average them over a long time, that's what your climate is, and that's what we're tracking. So 2025 was the third hottest year on record. All right, great. Maybe it was a one-off. Maybe, that was just a hot year and it's an anomaly. Well, guess what? Then we look in 2024, the year before that was the hottest ever. And then 2023, the year before that was the second hottest. So the last 3 years were the three hottest on the planet back to when we keep records, which is about 175 years. So again, maybe it's just a short time thing. Well, then we look and we see that in the last 15 years, all of those years ranked as the top 15 hottest. So yeah, now we're starting to get onto a really identifiable trend. And then we go back even further, and guess what? We have 588 consecutive months of above average global temperatures. And 588 divided by 12 is 49 years. So yeah, that's where you're getting into your climate, and you're seeing that things are changing. And then, okay, so the climate's changing, what's the big deal there? And what we're seeing is that we're getting more intense storms. So more intense heat, more intense, more powerful storms. And that has a real cost. NOAA, up until this year, was tracking billion-dollar disasters. The current administration has ceased those numbers, but Climate Central nonprofit is now tracking them as well. So 2025 saw 23 individual storms that ranked as billion-dollar disasters in the United States. That's the third greatest. And that is for a year where not a single hurricane even made landfall in the United States. So we are now seeing billion-dollar disasters on average every 3 weeks in the United States. In the 1980s, it used to be $1 billion disaster every 3 to 4 months. So yeah, it's not these one-offs. You put all these one-offs together and you get a trend. And in terms of New York City, things are changing as well. I mean, look out your window and try and think about this fact. 2020, New York City's climate was reclassified as subtropical. Sure doesn't look subtropical out there today, but again, today is a one-off. But overall, our climate was reclassified as subtropical because it's warmer and wetter than it used to be. And the extreme weather, we've seen it in New York City, unfortunately, with the severe flooding, of course. In the last 10 years, we've seen 5 tropical systems here, 6 of the 10 hottest years ever for New York City. all happened in the last 10 years. And New York City weather records go back to the 1800s, about 150 years. We had 3 tornadoes. We're seeing wildfires. And of course, we had that Canadian smoke outbreaks. So, the day-to-day storms aren't climate, but certainly climate is something we need to discuss and be aware of.
Here's a question from a listener. They write, I'm taking some scouts out this weekend and we need to build a fire. Will we be able to build a fire with so much snow?
Oh, scouts. Well, scouts are definitely near and dear to me. I'm an Eagle Scout and an active Scout leader. So be prepared is my advice for those folks. Yeah, I have.
Be prepared. Okay, now you've got the Scouts motto in there. Somebody else will have to fill in the specifics on building a fire in the snow. Before you go, John, can you put our weather in some national context? This storm system has been a record breaker in lots of the country, including parts of the South. In fact, I'll tell you a story. I was watching the Denver-New England football playoff game yesterday, played in Denver, where it was snowing really hard. And I noticed a headline that said the Denver Nuggets NBA basketball game had been canceled. And I thought, wow, they're playing football, but had to cancel a basketball game in Denver. But it turned out the Denver team was actually playing the Memphis Grizzlies in Memphis yesterday, and it was the weather in Memphis that caused the Grizzlies game to be canceled. I wonder if Memphis ever has an indoor sporting event or ever had an indoor sporting event canceled because of winter weather before. Can you talk about what was unique or unusual with this storm system, that it reached that far south, or anything else nationally?
Sure. Yeah. Now, this was just a massive storm. This is one of the classics. This is one of those where we had winter storm warnings from New Mexico to Dallas to Washington, D.C. It was just one of those old-fashioned big winter storms. And, Dallas, their temperatures today in Dallas are about the same as New York City. So that's pretty impressive. So it definitely was a massive system that impacted a lot of people. And unfortunately, a lot of those southern states ended up with a fair amount of ice and snow. And I think New York City is going to recover from their 11 inches of snow a lot faster than maybe the 3 inches that fell in Dallas. And Texas has seen some hard winter weather lately. They had that really big cold outbreak a few years ago where they had all the power failures because the natural gas plants aren't winterized down there. So the natural gas plants could not operate in those cold temperatures. And that's part of the extreme weather that we're talking about.
John Davitt, Chief Meteorologist for Spectrum News NY1. John, I'm a fan of yours. I love seeing your weather on the ones on NY1.
That's great, Brian.
And
thank you.
I hope this was fun for you, because you get a lot in there in that minute or two that you get in any given segment. But here you were able to stretch out for a little over a half hour. So I know it was really informative for our listeners. The comments, the stories, the questions are still coming in, though we're out of time. So I hope this was enjoyable for you. Thank you very much for joining us here on a day when I know you're very busy with your real job.
All right. One last thing, Brian. Yes, weather models do show an even bigger storm for this Saturday, but it's
no,
too
you're
soon.
kidding.
The model runs change from run to run, so let's hope it just disappears in about 24 hours.
I take it all back. It wasn't good to have you.
Thank you, Brian.
John Davitt, thank you very much. Brian Lehrer on WNYC. Much more to come.